Good morning. Welcome to New Buckingham Historical Wargamers again. And as you're about to see, we are doing one of our showpiece games, which is the Battle of Waterloo. This is the fifth time we'll have played it at New Buckingham. And we started last night, and we'll pick up a few details of what happened last night as we go around. But the director, who is doing his usual creditable job, wants me to start on the British side. So we'll do a little walk round, and we'll start with, we have over here Vivian's Hussar Brigade. Many of you looking at this will probably know what you're seeing as we scan, but we shall continue to point things out. Saxe Weimar's Nassau here with the farm of Papillotte and La Haye. To the rear and moving across to support Picton's Ridge is Vandeleur's Light Dragoon Brigade. Then we have Vink and Best's Hanoverian Landwehr in red coats. So they look very British, but they are in fact Hanoverian Landwehr. We come across to Sir Dennis Pact's brigade of the 44th, 1st Royal Scots. Hidden behind this scrubby tree, we have the Black Watch and the 92nd Gordons. In front is Bylant's Dutch-Belgian Brigade. Moving across, Rogers Battery in front with a Dutch battery alongside. We have the 28th Gloucesters, the 79th Cameronians, and the 32nd Cornwall Regiment with the 95th behind the knoll and occupying the sand quarry. Wellington, as you might expect, is by the famous elm tree with you can just see him there with the Duke of Uxbridge alongside, the Earl of Uxbridge I should say, and then we have Prince of Orange. We have Gigny's Cavalry Brigade to the back. I don't know whether we're with you still. I think we are, yes. And then we have Lambert's reserve of 3 British battalions. The magnificent Household Cavalry waiting to be unleashed upon the oncoming French at some point, no doubt, with the Dutch Carabinier Brigade behind of heavy horse. Von Ompteder's King's German Legion supporting the defenders of La Haye Saint, where we have the 2nd Battalion of KGL Rifles defending with some Nassau troops and some of the red-coated light companies of the line KGL. Then we have the British gun line covering the axis between La Haye Saint and Hougoumont, which we shall come to shortly. And you have Kelmansegger's Hanoverians. The Brunswickers are now appearing onto the table. Halkett's redcoats in the centre. Adams' brigade at the back of light infantry. And then we have the Cumberland Hussars, who are still on the table at the moment, but it's early days. Whether they'll be there later, we'll have to wait and see. We have Aaron Schilt's 3rd KGL Hussars. Then we have Dornberg's Light Dragoon Brigade, and in front we have, name's gone for a moment, Grant's brigade. Foot guards here, some have gone into square because there is a threat of French cavalry on the right, or the French left coming around Hougoumont. Royal Welsh Fusiliers in square, the 14th Foot, the Buckinghamshire Regiment in square, and the 52nd Foot. And over here we have the Dutch Belgians of Chase that have come forward from their reserve position off to the right rear of Wellington's line. And here we have the KGL Brigade of Duplat, and then alongside them the Hanoverian Landwehr Brigade of Hugh Halkett, who I do believe, if I recall correctly, is the brother of Colin Halkett, the commander of the British Brigade here. And we have Lord Hill, the corps commander on this flank here. And holding Hougoumont, of course, we have the 2nd Foot Guards and the Gardens held by them and the 3rd Nassau Battalion. And as you can see, there are French coming towards the orchard and flanking round to the west of Hougoumont, which we shall continue that action today. And in a moment we shall quickly go along the French side. So as you can see, Jerome's division is passing to the west of Hougoumont. Peary's cavalry, which you might just detect off the table, are going on a flanking march. The Allies are aware of that, hence some of their units in square. Foy's division, as I pointed out a few moments ago, is moving through towards the orchard. Again, it looks to be avoiding getting too heavily engaged at Hougoumont. Bachelou at the moment has not moved, but he appears to be waiting for the young guard to come up, which, looking at this, with Napoleon here looking on, will be attacking at some point this morning La Haye-Sainte. And the middle guard battalions are also moving forward. At the moment, Domon and Soubeville's cavalry brigades have not moved, so it'll be interesting to see if they come and support, as you can see, the masses of D'Erlon's infantry advancing across the shallow valley towards, as we've already pointed out, Picton's waiting redcoats and Dutch Belgians. And to the right here, we have the rest of D'Erlon's corps. And the most interesting aspect of the battle so far is Napoleon's order for Meau's cuirassier corps of 8 regiments to come round this way. So it'll be interesting. We allowed them to do it because the Prussians aren't here yet. Although as we go along this way, you probably you can see that we have Plancenoit held by some of Lobau's infantry. And we've put them on the table and they're about to start appearing there. The first 2 brigades stroke divisions of Bulow's 4th Corps coming on. And they will be attacking Plancenoit Church also at some point this morning, because they are due to arrive in the next couple of turns. This is now, I think I mentioned earlier, the 6th time we've done Waterloo, and it does seem to get a bit bigger every time, which is why I'm umpiring, because I can hopefully reach into the middle, because the French are going to obviously have to stretch to get that D'Erlon's corps across the centre there. But everybody's enjoying it. They're all discussing tactics over a cup of tea at the moment, and we shall come back to you and let you know what happened anon. Thank you very much.
A tremendous crescendo of noise and fury, like the rolling thunder of the night before, erupted from Napoleon's Grand Battery, heralding the beginning of what was to prove a fatal encounter once more for Bonaparte and his Army of the North. After some 40 minutes, the Grand Battery fell silent, as General D'Erlon's 1st Corps advanced through them and towards the ridge of Mont Saint-Jean. Advancing either side of Brussels Road were the 8 battalions of General Duhesme's Young Guard, ordered by Napoleon to capture the farm of La Haye-Sainte with all haste. Napoleon had also gambled on 2 flank marches, to the east and west, with 3 divisions of his cavalry. General Per's lancers and chasseurs were to flank the Allied right, while Marshal Ney was to lead General Milhaud's 4th Reserve Cavalry Corps, containing no less than 8 cuirassier regiments in 2 divisions in a right hook toward the hamlet of Smohain. General Lobau's weak 4th Corps was sent toward Plancenoit to block the Prussian advance at around 1:30 p.m. Soon after D'Erlon's corps had moved toward Picton, the divisions of Foy and Jerome in Rail's 2nd Corps moved to the east and west of Hougoumont respectively, avoiding the chateau. Lord Hill, observing this movement, sent the 3rd Foot Guards down to the Hollow Way. Around 1:45 p.m., as his plan of attack for the battle were nearing their designated sectors, Napoleon was seen to retire from the field. On the advice of his personal doctor, he had been told he must rest for a while. About 2:30 p.m. General Per's Light Cavalry Division appeared from its flank march and made a bold charge to the north of Hougoumont against the 3 British battalions of Mitchell's brigade. The French Lancers and Chasseurs à Cheval were immediately targeted and hammered by the nearby batteries of Ramsey, Simfer, and Webersmith. Per's own horse was shot from beneath him and he was knocked unconscious. His command faltered at this and, with their ranks being shot to near ruin, particularly the 3rd Lancers, the 4 regiments of his division retired to await support from Jerome's 13 infantry battalions. To the east, Durland's first assault on Picton's line was met by a storm of Allied musketry, the few cannon remaining adding to the destruction on the heads of the French attack columns, and bloodily, they were tumbled back. The 1st 95th put up a tremendous fighting retreat against some of the battalions of General Quiot's 1st Division as the French infantry came on to contest the sand quarry and hedge-lined knoll beyond. The close-range volleys from the Hanoverian Landwehr battalions, Verdun and Osterode of Best's brigade at the far end of the ridge, inflicted equally appalling losses upon the leading French attack columns, as did the musketry from General Beechland's Dutch-Belgian brigade. As Durlong's first assault against Picton was failing, in the centre 2 battalions of the Young Guard had attacked La Haye Saint from its orchard on the south side. The KGL riflemen in the orchard were soon driven back into the farm, but the 2nd KGL light infantry within held onto the buildings, and by 3:15 p.m. this first assault by the Young Guard had been driven off in defeat. It was about now that Napoleon reappeared on the field, and he was now much more the man of action. He rode to General Duhem, stressing the need for his Young Guard to take La Haye Saint, and an ADC was sent to Durlong to tell him he must break through Picton, and that battalions of his own Imperial Guard would be sent forward to support his corps. At 3:30 p.m. Duhem's Young Guard battalions assaulted La Haye Saint for a second time, just as Durlong's corps once again slammed home to contest the ridge of Mont Saint John to the east of the farm. Napoleon looked on, aware that the leading 2 Prussian brigades of Bulow's 4th Corps were now upon the heights overlooking Plancenoit, just as Milord's mass of cuirassiers could be seen to emerge on Wellington's extreme left.
Raise high the black flags, children! No pity! No prisoners! I'll shoot any man I see with pity in them!
The second assault on La Haye Saint, by 2 more battalions of the Young Guard concentrated on the western side, and after a hard and brutal contest the French were again thrown back by the KGL defenders, a fuming General Duhem rallying his disordered and battered command for a 3rd assault. Among the close terrain around Smohain and the thatched farm of La Haye, the leading 2 cuirassier regiments of Milhaud's corps clashed with General Vivian's 10th and 18th British Hussars. The French cuirassiers were ignominiously thrown back upon their supports, but the 1st and 4th cuirassiers then countercharged, and the 10th and 18th Hussars were themselves then forced to retreat upon their own brigade reserve. To the west, his cavalry, despite Peer himself being incapacitated, came on again as Jerome's infantry finally came up in support. The 1st Lancers, having already suffered losses to the Allied artillery, were driven back by the British 51st Foot in Square, and were then routed by a timely charge from the British 7th Hussars. The 7th then colliding with the 4th Chasseurs à Cheval, rapidly defeating them in turn, the remains of Peer's now shattered division then quitting the field. A third attack was made by 3 more battalions of the Young Guard against La Haye Sainte at around 4:15 p.m. The intense combat eventually subsided with the German defenders of the 2nd Light KGL Battalion still in possession of the farm, their French assailants of the Young Guard incurring losses among their division nearing 50%. General Duhem was joined by General Michel, who was bringing up his battalions of chasseurs PA of the Imperial Guard, whose elites would take over the task of evicting the green-clad riflemen from the farm. The fighting along Mont Saint-Jean Ridge had once more intensified, as Derland's determined battalions ascended the hillside in a great furious wave, gaining 2 lodgements upon the ridge with the retreat of the 2nd Belgian Line and a Dutch militia battalion. The divisions of Donzalo and Marconi were now nearing exhaustion, and Quillos was close to breaking, but the latter's infantry had, after a stiff fight, driven back and routed the 1st 95th Rifles, and his men were encouraged by the columns of chasseurs PA advancing rapidly up the Brussels road behind them in support. Lord Hill and the divisions of Alton and Clinton were still maintaining a dogged defence of the ridge between La Haye Sainte and Hougoumont, the artillery and musketry from their various commands causing havoc and consequent fearful losses on the divisions of Foy and Jerome. The cannon of Ramsey and Simfer's batteries continued to shred the enemy ranks, their fire, added to by the equally well-served guns of Mercer and Beans, accounting for the destruction of 4 French columns. Jerome's infantry division, thrown forward piecemeal, was literally being torn to pieces, and they now had Detmer's brigade of General Chass's Dutch-Belgian division attacking their left flank. Foy's division was in little better shape, the rippling musketry volleys of General Maitland's 2nd 1st and 3rd 1st Foot Guards, and Hawkett's 4 British battalions proving just as destructive. From out of the clouds of powder smoke, 2 of Foy's battalions were charged by the British 23rd Light Dragoons and were in an instant annihilated, as was a 3rd caught in line by the 3rd KGL Hussars. To the east, the Prussians were now fully committed. By 5 p.m. all 4 brigades of Bulow's 4th Corps were now pressing toward Plancenoit, and very soon the Prussian artillery had the centre of the village ablaze, including the church. Lebau's outnumbered battalions fought courageously to hold them, but were steadily forced back. A magnificent charge by the massed squadrons of the chasseurs Chiaval of the Imperial Guard drove deep into the Prussian formations ahead of them, but their success was of little impact overall, as the Prussians kept advancing, and by 5:30 p.m. large numbers of Perche's 2nd Corps were also upon the field. At 6 p.m., Bulow's infantry attacked the French in Plancenoit with a ferocious zeal, driving back the defenders at the point of bayonet. The Fusiliers rapidly reached and stormed the walled cemetery that surrounded the still blazing church, savagely evicting the French infantry of the 27th and 84th Line with the bayonet, and showing little mercy to the many wounded French left behind. With his left flank attacks blunted, and his right flank near to collapse due to the failures of Derlong's infantry and Ney's cuirassiers, and the subsequent arrival of the Prussians now fully committed there, Napoleon rode to join his Guard chasseur battalions, now advancing close by and beyond La Haye Sainte. The 4th Chasseurs PA had finally taken the farm at 5:30 p.m, and they, and more of their comrades, were now through the garden and putting intense pressure on Wellington Centre. To the immediate west of the farm, Bachelou's still largely intact division was ordered forward with Kellermann's 3rd Cavalry Reserve of Carabiniers Cuirassier Dragoons and the 3 regiments of Guard Cavalry in support. Wellington, beneath the famous elm tree, looked on with some concern. His army had so far fought magnificently, and he still had the upper hand, with many units of both foot and horse close by and largely uncommitted, and the Prussians were now heavily engaged and were gradually chewing up the French right flank, but the Imperial Guard were another matter, and with the great thief of Europe at their head, it was now time to cut cards with the devil. At 6:45 p.m. Napoleon was on the Brussels road close by the farm of La Haye Sainte when the leading battalions of his Imperial Guard engaged the Allied line. The battalions of Grenadiers of PA, supported by the remains of Derland's infantry and the 6 light cavalry regiments of Doman and Subervie, struck Picton's line, in a final and determined attempt to wrest the ridge from the Allies. The 7th and 8th Dutch militia battalions, which had been in the thick of the fight with Derland's corps, were now driven back in retreat, only for the Guard Grenadiers to be halted by the British battalions of Pack and Kent. The Highlanders of the 42nd and 92nd Regiments fired close-range volleys upon the bewildered Guard Grenadiers and then charged Napoleon's grumblers with the bayonet. The 42nd Black Watch savagely threw back the 1st Grenadiers, the 92nd Gordons the 2nd Grenadiers, and the single squadron of the Gendarme d'Elite. The latter, alongside in support of the Grenadiers, caught up in the press of the wild Highland charge, were either tumbled from their saddles or sent reeling back in confusion. The 1st Royal Scots halted another Guard battalion with withering close-range volleys, as did the 28th Gloucesters. The 79th Camerons, to the right of the 28th, tore into the last remnants of Quiet's infantry, and supported by the 32nd Foot, finally shattered Quiet's division beyond repair. 2 Guard Chasseur battalions attacked from the north of the La Haye Sainte via the Garden. Ompteda's men were driven back with heavy losses, but Wellington had time to deploy General Cruz's 3 Nassau battalions in the western branch of the sunken crossroads. As the chasseurs crested the embankment, Wellington's voice rang out to General Cruz, "Now Cruz, now's your time." The sudden and unexpected volley from the Nassauers stunned the already battered chasseurs, and they broke. Convulsed by the fury of the British musketry, they grudgingly fell back. The Allied cavalry on the Allied right had been largely successful too, Grant's and Dornberg's in particular, the 23rd Light Dragoons adding to their earlier laurels when they routed a French battalion caught in column as it attempted to outflank the battalions of the 1st Foot Guards. Jerome's division, utterly demoralized, continued to suffer punishment as it was swept back by the battalions of Chasse and Mitchell, the latter's battalions of the 14th, 23rd, and 51st, leading the way with the bayonet. The growing power and pressure of the Prussians upon the French right and right rear were now all too evident. At Plancenoit, French attacks to retake the burning village from the Prussians all failed. The Prussian 8th Hussars routed 2 squadrons of the Imperial Guard Chasseurs at Cherval, and General Perche's 2nd Corps was now fully committed. By 7 p.m. General Ziethen's 1st Corps were entering the battlefield via the village of Smohar. General Ney's cuirassiers now found that they were between a rock and a hard place. As Ziethen's leading elements came on, Ney and General Milhaud only just had time to turn and reform their cuirassier regiments to face them. And in a final, forlorn, riposte, Ney ordered the 7th, 10th, and 12th regiments to charge. Ney's charge clashed with the oncoming Prussian 2nd and 5th Dragoons, throwing them back in complete disarray. This gave Ney and Milhaud's corps a chance to break away and retreat. Napoleon, only a few hundred yards behind the leading elements of the Guard, knew the game was up. Both of his flanks were fast collapsing. To Napoleon's left, Durat's infantry and Kellermann's cavalry were meeting the same storm of effective Allied firepower from Cook, Alton, Clinton, and Chasse's divisions. Cook's 2 battalions of the 1st Foot Guards had ground Foy's division down into defeat. The Imperial Guard, having been so bloodily checked and repulsed, were then forced to withdraw to cover the growing rout, as once more it was sauve-qui-peut for Napoleon's army.
Welcome back. This is our 6th outing at New Buckingham Historical Wargamers of our signature Waterloo game, and it's been an Allied victory. As we go around the table, we will try and point out the salient points for you. To start with, as our director comes across, you will see that Hougoumont has been left largely unmolested, and the Coldstreams and the light companies of the Coldstreams and the 3rd Foot Guards are still there, as are the Nassau Battalion. So Hougoumont was not contested on this occasion, and we came over to where Jerome's division, and as you may apprehend, his large division is reduced to a mere handful of battalions, and he is about to withdraw. He has broken, he's lost his morale. The two battalions here of Mitchell's brigade, the 23rd Royal Welsh and the 14th Buckinghamshire, were particularly effective with their volleys and countercharges with the bayonet. As we move across, Grant's brigade were fairly effective. Chase's division were now pouring musketry down onto what remained of Jerome's division. We have more of Chase's Dutch Belgians moving up to support Wellington's not very hardly pressed right. Four's division, which would have been in the dead ground here between Hougoumont and the ridge, was destroyed by a combination of artillery fire and the foot guards' volleys. Because the British and their allies felt they were doing well on the right wing, they've concertinaed a number of their brigades, including Halkett's and Adams and Hugh Halkett, who had the Landwehr, the KGL under Duplat. They are all here awaiting the attack from what's left of Waterloo now, who will not get very far on his own, we think, with this behind them. At the back here in front of me, we have the Carabiniers, the Dutch-Belgian forces. They have not been committed, as indeed have not the Black Hussars and the Uhlans of Brunswick, or the Household Cavalry. So because of, as you're already no doubt picking up, because of all these situations, this is why we've declared it an Allied victory. Napoleon himself has wrested the La Haye Sainte, the farm, from the Allies. The Young Guard failed to take that most of the afternoon, so then a regiment of chasseurs à pied went in and they took the farm. And they've put pressure on the centre, but Cruisers Nassers, defending the sunken lane, have thrown back the initial attacks of the chasseurs à pied. And we've called it, but we have 3 British battalions defending the crossroads against these columns of grenadiers of the Guard, with Napoleon by the entrance to La Haye Sainte encouraging them on. With the corps of drummers nearby. And then on Picton's Ridge, all the way along here, D'Erlon's corps made a sterling effort, but the Dutch-Belgian dice rolls were impeccable on this occasion and constantly threw them back with musketry fire, where they did fail eventually, as you can see. Highland regiments and line regiments of Kempt and Pack's brigade filled in the gaps. And again, the cavalry in reserve just looked on, were mere onlookers for most of the battle. The only remaining division that has any fighting strength is Bachelor, which is fortunate for Napoleon, because we now feel that both flanks would be pressed hard by the Prussians who have come on to the left, which you will see in a moment, and he will have to fall back because of the weight of numbers against him. An interesting tactic or manoeuvre, I should say, by Napoleon in this battle was he sent Milhaud with his 8 cuirassier regiments in his corps on a flanking march through this very rough ground. So although they look magnificent wheeling around here, they weren't able to achieve a lot because of the terrain here. And then towards the end of our game, as you can see, Ziethen's corps appeared, and there was a small action here, which the cuirassiers, led by Marshal Ney at the back, did drive back the Prussian dragoon regiments. But again, it's a holding action. They are somewhat in a rock and a hard place here with Nassau troops to their rear. It's not looking good for Ney's cuirassiers, and they will no doubt try and slip away back towards the French rear. On the right, we have the Prussians under Bülow and Perche coming on behind on the heights, attacking Plancenoit. Prussian artillery very quickly set fire to the centre of Plancenoit, and then with their first assault by the Fusiliers of the Prussian 15th Regiment, they took the church in the centre of the village and repelled another French attack to retake it. So with the massive Prussians we have, as you can see here, coming in from the east and what's happened in the centre, you can understand why we've called it as a Allied victory at Waterloo on our 6th game at New Buckingham Historical War Games. Thank you for viewing, and we'll do it again someday.